It's over!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. Right on the show today, the one-off test between Afghanistan and New Zealand that's scheduled to take place in India is threatening now to be abandoned altogether. Rains have exposed the weak and shoddy infrastructure of the stadium in India's Greater Noida. A player got injured and both teams are displeased with the conditions at the ground. What's happened so far and why did the situation come to this? Over at the NFL, that continues to be in the news, but not for what's happening on the pitch. One of the Miami Dolphins players, Tyreek Hill, was at the receiving end of police brutality. The body cam footage was released, which tells a very compelling story. What really happened and who's to blame? Was this an act of police violence against a person of color? More on the show, and we tell you the story of Paralympic medalist, army man from Nagaland, Hokato Sema, who lost his leg in a mine blast in Jammu and Kashmir and now has gone on to finish on the podium at the Paralympics in Paris. What's the secret to his success and who has been his biggest inspiration? Wait to know more on that, but first a look at the headlines. Starting with football, about 50 Italy fans dressed in black turned their backs to Israel's national anthem before the Nations League match in Hungary. The Israel-Italy game took place at Bosic Arena in Budapest. The fans displayed an Italian flag with Libertà, meaning freedom, written on it, along with banners featuring black slashes. Italy eventually won the match 2-1. In another Nations League fixture, France overpowered Belgium. Despite Mbappe starting from the bench, France scored twice against Kevin De Bruyne's Belgium. Randal Kolo Muani opened the scoring in the first half and Ousmane Dembele scored in the second. Over in cricket, Sri Lanka won the third and the final test by 8 wickets against England at the Oval. Sri Lanka reached the target of 219 runs after Pathum Nissanka scored an impressive century. It was also Sri Lanka's first win on English soil in a decade. Despite the loss, though, England won the series 2-1. The Australian government announced that all national and state-level sports organisations must have an equal number of men and women represented on their boards. The government expects this to be implemented by 2027. If any organisation fails to do so by then, will risk having their funding withheld. Following up on the Chattogai murder case, the Olympic runner's alleged murderer and former boyfriend, Dixon Ndiema, has died in the hospital. Dixon was getting treated in the same hospital as he sustained burns after allegedly setting Cheptegei on fire. Dixon's death comes almost a week after Cheptegei herself passed away. Afghanistan and New Zealand playing a one-off test in India in a stadium in Greater Noida, in fact not too far away from the country's capital, Delhi. India offering their venue to Afghanistan, who cannot host any cricket back home. And it would have been quite the sight had the match started as scheduled to on Monday, 9th of September, that was yesterday. We are at the end of day 2 and still not a single ball has been bowled. Now we hear teams didn't even leave their hotels to get to the stadium today for a while. By the end of the day, Afghanistan did not leave their hotel rooms. Why? The outfield was too wet and damp for any play to even happen, for even the toss to take place. Yes, there were no showers in those parts yesterday, but unprecedented rains over the weekend in the northern cities, so much so that the whole ground has been covered in puddles. It just highlighted the lack of facilities in the Greater Noida Stadium. Now, picture this, the rains were obviously too much for the teams to even practice or train before the start of the test. In fact, they did try, and one of the Afghanistan bowlers, a key player in their 11, Ibrahim Zadran, got injured. He twisted his ankle during a fielding drill. On Monday, that's yesterday, you witnessed very few parts, just the center of the ground actually covered, and with tents and tarps that had been rented from a tent house. Table fans, that's right, if you don't believe me, you'll see those pictures there. Table fans were being used to dry up patches of the outfield. There were multiple inspections scheduled right through the day. In fact, players from both the teams were seen coming out to assess the conditions and showed their displeasure. Tim Southee, Rachin Ravindran and Mitchell Santner from the New Zealand camp came out. Jonathan Trott, who's of course the head coach of Afghanistan, and of course Kane Williamson of the New Zealand side, both not pleased with the situation at hand. And with players already wary of getting injured playing in these wet conditions, the start of play got pushed to day 2, that's today. Not something either teams would have wanted. And the situation was no better even on day 2. Toss got delayed earlier today as well. If table fans startled you on day 1, you got to see this. Groundsmen were seen digging up sections, big sections of the ground, pulling out wet earth, filling it with dry soil and putting grass cover on it. That's not good. Definitely not the kind of ground you play an international test match on, any cricket for that matter. Just too shoddy and could prove to be dangerous. The run-up, as it is, was wet. Despite 5 super soppers being used, the progress was negligible because play couldn't happen. In fact, most of the groundsmen employed, 20 to 25 of them, including 15 outsourced workers, were seen trying their best to get this going and get the ground match ready. All of this clearly pointing to one thing: lack of proper infrastructure and facilities at the ground. Getting internet meme makers very, very active. So why was this ground the option? And did the BCCI not think this through? Let me attempt to answer these questions here. There are matches being played at many other venues across the country currently, domestic matches, but matches nonetheless. Plus, this was the ground that Afghanistan had been given to train in the earlier years. So maybe the BCCI felt that they could persist with this stadium for the one-off test too against New Zealand, without realizing how inadequate this was proving to be. Sure, these showers have been unprecedented, untimely, but a ground needs to be prepared for any circumstances, particularly rains. The drainage system clearly took a beating. Maybe the match should have been rescheduled, knowing the kind of weather Delhi had been subjected to in the run-up to this test. Afghanistan, in fact, has been hoping to play this test. Here's a country that has hardly played test cricket over the years since they came to be, all of just 10 test matches. They can't play any international match at home, so for them this was important. For New Zealand too, this was a key warm-up to their series that's coming up against Sri Lanka and of course the big one against India that's scheduled later. Both teams are clearly miffed with what has turned out to be a bit of a damp affair, dampening their spirits too, even as we all wait to see what day 3 will bring. Now, the NFL might have just begun, but the buzz around it makes me feel like we are halfway into the season already. Of course, I'll be mistaken, but all the chatter isn't about the games or the star players, not yet anyway. The latest chapter to unfold is the one surrounding Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. The Dolphin star was stopped for speeding, but what followed was horrifying.
Get out! Get out! Damn! What part of violence you understand? Getting arrested, Drew. I'm getting arrested. We are. We will. Good, bro. It is good. Hey. Don't worry about it. I hung up the phone. You stop crying. Don't move. Good.
You're of course watching the body cam footage that got released later, and you saw Hill being dragged from his car, pushed down to the pavement on his stomach, and handcuffed as the cop pushed his knees down on his back. Now, this was hours before Miami Dolphins' season opener against Jacksonville Jaguars. Turbulent for anyone, right? From being stopped for a driving violation, now that's fair, to getting dragged out and then arrested. Now that took a turn for the worse in no time. And such events would frighten anyone, even someone like Hill, who's a star player. But going by the dynamics of the situation, a cop here and a colored person, the matter surely did not end here. The officers eventually pulled him aside and asked him to kneel down on the curb. Moments later, he was aggressively pushed down again.
Yeah. Bro, dude beating on my window like he crazy. I just had surgery on my knee. Bro. I just had surgery on my knee, bro.
In the audio, you can clearly hear Tyreek saying that he just had a knee surgery. He'd not want to go down and kneel there, but the police officers didn't relent and hesitate one bit. They in fact even took a jibe earlier. According to reports, one of the cops quipped whether he also had an ear surgery done because he clearly couldn't hear them all too well. And it only kept getting worse. Moments later, a couple of Hill's teammates, Jonu Smith and Calais Campbell, arrived at the scene. They were trying to de-escalate the situation, calm things down, but Campbell too got handcuffed by the police officers in the process.
Nope, too late.
Nope, too late. We told you multiple times.
I'll move the car. I got you.
Move the car, sir, please. Please move the car.
The car has to hang up.
Campbell was released a little later, and after this traumatic experience, Hill was let off with a ticket. Now here's my question. If they had to just let him go with just a ticket violation anyway, why didn't they do that and get a move on instead of doing all of this? Was the brutal handling really necessary? Was creating a scene there, displaying physical force, really required? But we'll come to that in a bit. First, let's see what happened after that. Hill went on to play his match against the Jaguars a while later. In usual cases, an incident such as this, as terrifying as this was, can shake a person up. But during the match, a different Hill walked onto the pitch. The police shake-up clearly fired him up. He scored a touchdown and followed it up with this unique celebration. Quite the statement, if you ask me. Despite that drama on the streets of Miami, Hill came back and scored a touchdown to take his team to victory. He had to make a statement after all of that which went down, and so he did with that celebration, letting not just his fans but everyone else know how he was treated just a while earlier.
It's hard. I don't want to bring race into it, but sometimes it gets kind of iffy when you do. If I wasn't Tyreek Hill, worst case scenario, we would have had a different article. Tyreek Hill got shot in front of Hard Rock Stadium. That's worst case scenario.
After the incident made its way to the internet, fans were enraged and there was spite for the police officer who was involved. The reactions came flooding in thick and fast, and people, of course, sympathized with Hill. Following the outrage, the officer who handled the case was put on administrative duty. He was basically not suspended, and he remains that way until the inquiry is complete. The officer won't be on the field. That's what's come out of this. A convenient status quo to please all parties involved.
The department is committed to conducting a thorough, objective investigation into this matter, and we will continue to update the public on the outcome of that process.
Now, while the Miami Dolphins did express their concerns regarding this situation, this matter, showing their support to Tyreek, they too are waiting for the investigation to conclude.
I'm confident everything will get reviewed. I'm confident this is too much in the spotlight to sweep under the rug. So I feel like what I don't know now, it's not my time to know. But I think facts supersede everything, so I think it's important for people to allow a fair process for all information to get distributed.
Which brings me to the second part of the story. In the body cam video that was released by the police department, snatches of which you've seen as well, it's visible that Tyreek was forcefully handled by the police officers. But what really led to this? Was this required? Did Hill at any point disobey the officers' orders?
Hey, don't knock on my window like that, man. Don't knock on
Why
my
don't you have your seatbelt on?
Don't knock on my window.
Why don't you have your seatbelt
Knock
on?
on my window like that, though.
Like what?
Don't knock on my window like that.
Why you have it up?
Don't knock on my window like that.
Why you have it up? I have to knock to let you know I'm here.
Don't knock
That
on
way you
my
can
window.
lower it and talk to
Just
you.
get my ticket, bro, so I can go. I'm finna be late, gang. Do what you gotta do.
Keep it down. Hey!
Keep your window down.
And you can hear the officers questioning Hill for speeding and even asking him about the seat belt. The discussion continued over him rolling down the window and then again rolling it back up. The officer lost his cool there and dragged Hill out of the car. I agree that from the audio we can make out that Hill wasn't being cooperative initially, but even he thought that a speeding offence called for a ticket. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not defending Hill's behaviour here or the act of speeding, both incorrect. Hill himself gave an explanation to all of this and the reason behind it a little later.
I'm not trying to cause a scene because A, if I let my window down, people walking by, driving by, they're going to notice that it's me and they're going to start taking pictures. I didn't want to create a scene at all. I just really wanted to get the ticket and then just go out about my way.
And it isn't just the matter of Tyreek not rolling down his window. What's more concerning is the way the officers handled the situation or reacted right after. It almost feels like they wanted to show their authority in the most unnecessary, crude manner. But given the video is now out in the open for all to see, does this reflect a targeted incident against a person of colour? Well, I'll leave that for you to decide. Now, the Paralympics has concluded, yes, but it is these games that truly show you how much the human will is truly tested and how they fight all odds to come out triumphant. It's much more than a sporting victory, and one athlete who's truly defined this is Paralympian bronze medalist Hokato Sema, an army man who lost his leg in a mine blast but came back stronger to prove himself elsewhere. And he attributes all of this, his journey, his struggles through all challenges, to one very special person. Take a look.
Hokato Sema, an army man from Nagaland who won the bronze medal in the men's short put F57 category. He's the first athlete from Nagaland to win a Paralympic medal for India. Hokato's throw of 14.65 meters, his personal best, managing to get bronze for his efforts. But this is not what makes Sema's journey inspirational. The athlete overcame personal tragedies, financial woes through his resilience, and a special someone to get this far. The 40-year-old comes from a very humble background. His father was a farmer, so the passion to serve his country comes from his father. While his father pursued agriculture to build the nation, Sema decided to join the Indian Army. And while he trained hard to achieve his ultimate goal of joining the elite special forces, it brought an end to his army career. Mine blast caused him to lose his left leg in Jammu and Kashmir in 2002. But this did not stop him. He switched his focus to something else. At the Army Paralympics node, he trained to become an athlete. And even though this turn of events came when he was past 30, he never let that deter him. He in fact sought inspiration from the biggest poster boy of Indian Olympics, Neeraj Chopra.
As an army man, I felt if Neeraj Chopra could do it for the Indian Army and for India as an able-bodied athlete, as a para-athlete from the Indian Army, why can't I?
The Army connection pushed Sema to continue his dream. Despite coming into the sports late, Sema won an Asian Para Games bronze, a Paralympics bronze, and a silver in the Morocco Grand Prix. And behind this resolute attitude is a special someone who has pushed Sema to achieve, his wife, whom he dedicated his medal to.
This medal is for my wife. She has often starved so that I could eat and continue training because we didn't have enough money to ensure 2 square meals a day. She has been my biggest pillar of support. She has picked me up every time I felt like giving up. Without her, I would not have been on the podium today.
Sure, it was Sema's brilliance and his undying spirit that saw him finish at the podium, getting a historic medal for India. But even the strongest minds tend to falter in front of a daunting challenge. And it was in those times that Sema's wife kept him going. They fought hardships together, cried through the tough times together, but she never let him give up, which is what makes this medal and this win even more special. From the battlefield to the Paralympic podium, from heartbreak to hope, all was possible because she held fort and made Sema get there.
Time for last serve. Celebrities rained in on the US Open final night. In fact, that became quite the highlight of the Grand Slam. Many stars came over to watch Yannick Sinner win the title. There was, of course, Lewis Hamilton and Noah Lyles in the stands, but the couple that stole the thunder, really, and the spotlight was singer Taylor Swift and her boyfriend Kansas City Chiefs Travis Kelce. That wraps up Firstpost here today. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, do take care.
Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual on Firstpost, where we get you the top 50 stories from around the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin. In our top stories today, Ukraine fired over 140 drones at Russia